Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisor meeting to order. The date is July 13th. The time is 9:03 a.m. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask our Probation Chief, Mark Barrera, to lead us in the pledge and then remain standing. So Pastor John Torres from City Ministry Networks will be giving us an invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for having me. If we could bow our heads. Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for the hearts of our board and the congregants in this room, Lord, and the desires and to see change or improvement or whatever it looks like, Lord, that we're here for. I ask that you be with this meeting, Lord. We ask for peace, patience, and understanding. And I want to thank you, Lord, for the hearts of all in this room. We love you very much and are grateful for all that you do. We say these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Mark. So now we're going to move on to the public comment period. It is an opportunity to speak on any item that is not on today's posted agenda. The board cannot take action. We're going to ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes. And I'll ask you not to be too repetitious. I see there's some signs out there, and I'm okay with the signs, but make sure no one's sitting behind you, that it doesn't interfere with them, or else you can go to the back of the room or sit in the back seats from that. I'm also, if you fill out a speaker card, you don't have to, but it'll expedite the process because we have lots of speaker cards. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up a name, and I'm going to call up the second name who's on deck if they can make their way to one of these front seats or stand in the aisle. That would be fantastic. So again, thank you all for coming. It's always good to see governance in action because we typically don't have a lot of people other than staff and whatever's on the specific agenda that day that the folks that show up. So the first speaker card I have is Mr. Miguel Donoso, and we have a presentation. We do not. Oh, we do have it. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to back that up. And I already made my first mistake. As I'm squinting, we have a presentation opportunity, Stanislaus update on strategic initiatives from David White. I see Dave. I am sorry, Dave.
I'm sorry, sir.
It seems like I always get you, right?
I'm sorry. I for my attorney.
You got here early. Got your name in the front.
Okay.
Hi, Dave.
It's nice
Good
to
morning.
see you. Good morning. Well, it's nice to see you all, Board of Supervisors, Chairman Chiesa, Mr. Hayes, Mr. Bose. Thank you so much. And it's a great honor to be here today. Looks like we have a lively crowd, so I'm glad I'm going first. And anyway, I just wanted to thank the county for being such a strong partner in our strategic planning effort. Opportunity Stanislaus is an economic development organization that serves Stanislaus County and the region. Our whole focus and our whole purpose is to serve the needs of business and to increase economic vitality in Stanislaus County. And so we have a great partnership with the county, with the private sector, with all the cities. And again, it's a great honor to be here today. What I'm going to be talking about is our recent, we spent 2 months, March, April, going into May, to determine what our plan would be for the next 5 years. But part of that was to understand what the impacts and what the challenges were coming out of the global pandemic. We realized that the pandemic has been very disruptive to business. Many businesses here in Stanislaus County are no exception. So in the next few minutes, what I'll be doing is talking about what we learned during the discovery process, during these interviews, on the impact of the pandemic to business and what that means for our strategic planning going forward in the next 5 years. Let's see if do I need to point this a certain place? Oh, it's not on. Okay, there we go. Okay, so first I'd like to talk a little bit about our consultant. I'm very glad that Fred Michelson, Fred, can you raise your hand? Fred is here with us. Fred is one of the principals of Strategic Solutions from Austin, Texas. Strategic Solutions is an economic development consulting organization Many of the principals have over 40 years of experience in economic development all around the country. They've done about 100 strategic plans for organizations like ours throughout the country. Fred is one of the principals, and we've gotten to know Fred really well. Many of you know Fred and met with him in the past. They've completed a study here. Our last campaign 6 years ago was done by Strategic Solutions. And so we hired them to do this discovery process and also help us to deliver this new campaign. We'd like to thank the county. The county participated in funding this project to the tune of $30,000 from the Board of Supervisors and then another $20,000 through the Stanislaus County Workforce Development. I don't know if Doris is here, but I'd like to thank Doris Foster for her support, as well as the County Board of Supervisors. And we also were able to obtain an EDA grant, Economic Development Administration grant, from Washington, D.C., Department of Commerce, to support this effort. The methodology that we chose in order to do this project was interviews, in-person interviews, and we conducted 73 in-person interviews. The total number of interviews was 94, but not all of those were focused on business support and business reaction to the pandemic. So 73 of the interviews were very much focused on what the pandemic did and what the future would hold. The interviews were conducted March and April of 2021. We asked 6 questions about COVID. We asked what was the impact on their business, what is the ongoing impact going forward, and then how did the county respond and what should the county do going forward to support business coming out of the pandemic, what should opportunities Stanislaus focus on, and also what the cities should focus on. For this exercise today, I'm not going to really share so much about opportunities Stanislaus and the cities. I want to focus on the county. That's why we're here. And then also, what do we expect going forward? The interviews, the 73 interviews, were segmented by market. We interviewed quite a number of businesses in different segments, and you can see the number of interviewees and the segments that were covered: public sector, manufacturing, ag, healthcare, business services, and so on and so forth. Well, let me first say that one thing we learned from the interviews very, very prominently was that Stanislaus County did a very, very good job in handling the pandemic and continues to do a good job in handling the pandemic. In fact, as I talk to my peers around the state, they're amazed at how this county came together and worked so effectively together in dealing with the pandemic. Now, of course, nobody's perfect, and there were some bumps along the road, but generally speaking, this county did very well. In fact, information dissemination about the pandemic, excellent marks. The grant program, the county grant program using the CARES Act dollar, that was significant. That really saved a lot of companies from going out of business. So you really should give a round of applause yourselves for doing that program. A lot of other counties were either slow to the game or didn't even do this, but our county did. And I know how meaningful it was. Vaccine distribution, very effective. And being able to get it out and have established in quick order places where people could go to get the vaccine. And then just assembling the a countywide team from both the public and private sector. Amazing effort. And not only was it people from the public sector at the table, but also members of the private sector. And so congratulations on a job well done. So the initial impact on COVID on business, and this is really intuitive. I don't think it's earth-shattering, but the number one impact on businesses, and let me preface that by saying that in our county, we have a great relationship and a great reliance on essential industries, even more so than a lot of the counties on the coast. Our county actually managed a lot better than counties like Orange County and San Francisco because of their higher dependence on tourism and hospitality. But in our county alone, the major number one impact was just disruption to business, disruption to supply chains. And you can see that 54% of the respondents acknowledged that as the number one issue. Number two impact was all the new business costs that companies had to pay for, not budgeted, because of what the pandemic did. All the PPE, all the plexiglass dividers in manufacturing shops, all the testing that had to be done, and the training and everything that had to be done. That was a major impact on business. One company spent millions and millions of dollars just trying to get all this PPE in place. It was essential, it had to be done. And the number 3 was loss of revenue, but that was only mentioned by 27% of the respondents. And mostly the revenue loss was in specific industries, not so much in manufacturing, more so in business services. And of course, we know that restaurants and those in the hospitality industry really took the brunt of the impact. Current impact on COVID on business. One really important thing, and if I could illustrate anything, and if I could emphasize anything, the number 1 impact right now is getting workers back. That came out loud and clear, and it continues to be a crisis. Businesses that need to ramp up for the season are having a really difficult time getting employees to want to come back. Now, there's not a lot the county can do about that, because this is an issue at the state and the federal level. But one of the biggest challenges is, as long as we continue to offer stimulus dollars and unemployment add-ons, it makes it easy for people to stay home. Now, that's not the only issue, because there's still concern about the pandemic. There's still issues with childcare and other factors. But the more that we can incentivize people to go back to work, the more it will help our economy and help our businesses recover and get back to normal. Also, other issues mentioned were all the regulatory issues that came up. There were new regulations passed, kind of even at the strike of midnight, where people weren't aware. Some of the regulations that were passed through Cal OSHA have been very detrimental to business. And then inflation. We've all seen that in our own lives. We've seen prices skyrocket. I just paid over $100 to fill my tank up at the gas station. So these kind of issues are having a major impact not only on consumers, but also on business. And supply chain remains an issue going forward. Getting the supplies and the materials you need to just continue to do business. Again, these are macro issues. There's not a lot the county can do about it, but we can at least share our opinions when we talk to our state and federal legislators to let them know what the challenges are. So the next question is, what should the county now do to help? And this was a specific question we asked about what the county can do. And again, high marks for the county and the way they responded, but this is about what do we do going forward. So number 1, we need to get, this is what the respondents said, get those stimulus dollars out fast. Make them work, help in a way to help business, to help the economy, to help our communities grow and respond. Number 1. Number 2, and that was 69% of the respondents, find a way to cut red tape, streamline services. If there's a way to get projects fast-tracked through the system, and if I know that the cities and the county, you're getting overwhelmed with permitting, and of course this employment issue not only the private sector is facing, but I know that the county and other entities are also short-staffed. But if we can find a way to cut red tape and streamline services, that was another big response by our business community. And then promote vaccines, number 3. I know that it's a controversial topic for many, but the vaccines, what we're finding is that the vaccines work, and when they work, it means that the economy can open up even greater than it has heretofore. So coming out of the pandemic, there were companies that, like I said, did pretty well. They were able to, there were some companies that saw new opportunities, that they hadn't seen before. And then there were companies that, of course, saw loss in revenue, or they saw disruption. But right now, the companies doing well. The financial services did really well, and a lot of that had to do with the PPP. All of a sudden, they had all this cash, all the opportunity to offer loans, and many of our financial services organizations did well. Most essential industries did well. There was disruption, but there were also opportunities. Real estate was hit hard at first because all of a sudden people weren't buying homes, everything kind of shut down. But now, with this new paradigm of people being able to work from home and people moving over from the Bay Area, it's created quite a stir and a surge in real estate. And so I can't tell you, well, you know this, but we can't build houses fast enough here in our county, in the valley. There's huge demand. And then healthcare is improving. At first, healthcare was disrupted. There were opportunities presented by the pandemic, but a lot of the essential services that healthcare used to do were put on hold. Now those services are coming back. People are going back to get their exams and checkups and procedures. Their industry is still struggling, and we need to keep an eye on these industries, particularly our restaurants. And you know, it's interesting, they're not struggling because of lack of demand. The demand is there. The main issue where they're struggling is trying to get their workers back. So a lot of restaurants have had to close down certain times during the day, during the week, just because they don't have workers. They can't serve the demand. And another issue is with the hospitality, same thing. It's coming back, but people are not traveling. There's still some concerns about the pandemic, but that's starting to come up. You know, Mr. Graywell's here, and he's done quite well. He and I have talked, but other hotels have struggled. And nonprofits, you know, nonprofits, we depend on companies doing well so that they will contribute to organizations and to charitable causes. And we're kind of down at the bottom of the food chain. So when businesses do well, we tend to do well. And then finally, services. A lot of business services are continuing to struggle for various reasons. So major impediments going forward, workforce is number one. We've got to figure out a way to encourage people to come back to work. State and federal regulations, a big issue. And then lack of housing. The more we can do to find creative ways to build homes, affordable, where people can afford to live there, that's going to be a pressing need going forward. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how COVID impacts our 5-year plan, and it's impacted it greatly. It's presented new opportunities, but it's also helped us to realize where we need to go as an organization. So our Next Year 5 campaign, like I said, we did 94 discovery interviews. We actually got great marks on providing ROI to our investors, to the businesses we serve. 80% responded that they received or saw ROI from the organization the last 5 years. Our board agreed to move forward with the plan, the campaign, at our board meeting, May 24th. I do want to acknowledge I have one of our board members, Dan Leonard, is here. So, Dan, raise your hand. I'm very glad to have him from Brockman Wine. And so we're moving forward now on developing our plan and our case statement, and we'll begin fundraising in August. So the new plan status, what's going to be different about the plan? And this is really exciting. So Volt Institute, our Advanced Manufacturing Training Center, we're going to expand that. One of our goals is to take Volt on the road and be able to take it to manufacturing locations, not only locally, but in the region. We're going to lead business talent development. And that means not only are we going to help develop the workforce with our partner Accounting Workforce, but we're also going to help train businesses how to attract and retain talent. That's really important. We can't use the same business practices we did before because we've gone through a major paradigm shift, and people now, they want flexibility, they want to work at home. We have to address that. And then finally, well, 3 more, improve economic vitality. We're going to go to the next level. We had at our last board meeting, it was mentioned about this huge project coming to Turlock. And the response was polite, but it was tepid. And I was amazed by that. But then I realized it's the same thing we always get. We get distribution centers. We could probably fall asleep and distribution centers would come. We need to go to a higher level. We need better jobs, higher paying jobs. We need to diversify our economy. We also need to attract assets that will help people want to come here and stay here. So the Children's Museum, projects like that are very vital so our community can be very attractive for talent. We want to grow local business, but not just provide services to business, small business. We want to help businesses scale. When a business scales and starts developing franchises outside the county, what happens? That money comes back to the county, and then we have stronger businesses. And then finally, and this is brand new, we want to drive public policy. Now, we're not going to endorse candidates. We're not going to endorse parties. But what we will do is really get behind good legislation that's going to improve the business climate in our region and in our state. And then, to that end, I would add that now our organization is part of what's called the Bay Area Mega Region Alliance, in partnership with other organizations like the Bay Area Council. And we're working collaboratively in a region to make sure that we're on top of business needs. I'm very, very excited about that. In fact, we've created a new organization called the New California Coalition, which will be a statewide organization supporting business climate issues. So we're going to stop playing defense. Well, we'll still play defense, but we're going to play offense. We're going to go and be more aggressive. And then just some things that we're going to look forward to, new things that are coming. We're going to develop a regional economic research institute to support regional and local public policy decisions. So if the county has something that you want to get passed and you need the business community support, we're going to have this research institute that will do the research to provide that support. We're going to identify with our partners, and I might add that we're very excited about this more strategic, the more grandiose strategic planning process that's going on through the Stanislaus Community Foundation. We're part of that, we're excited about that, and we're going to be working very closely with them to make sure we're in line. And one of the things that will come out of that is we're going to probably lead a game changer project, something that will really be impactful to our local economy. And then we're going to start a CEO quarterly roundtable that will be CEOs from our largest companies here to be aware and also to support important public policy decisions, and then continue to do regional messaging. So it's a great honor to be here. I do have a packet that I'll deliver to Mr. Mendez, Raul Mendez, of all the reports. I have the hard data that I'll hand to him today. But at this time, I'd like to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions of Mr. White?
Just thanks, yeah, Dave, thanks for being here and all the work you guys are doing. I know it's been a challenging time for business, as we know, and I know as a board we've done everything we can to try to help our local businesses, and we appreciate all the work that you guys do out there as a partner, and we look forward to great things with your new plans here.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
And you had said something that's very important. We're so often chasing new businesses, and we need to prop up the businesses that are already here, that are committed to this area, have been here for tens, decades, 100 years in some cases. So we appreciate the effort you're putting in. All right, anyone from the audience want to comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please come up.
It's very nice report, Mr. White, but at the same time, I don't see nothing in regard to the race and anything opportunity in there. I don't see in the report the saying who really is the working forces. Is the Mexican American? Is the Mexican? It don't say nothing in the report. Maybe in the other small detailed report, maybe say that. But under that report, it never mentioned the race and ethnicity, equity that we need to have in this county. Because if we are the Mexican American and Mexican 50% of the population, we have to be reflected in that in regard to the business. It never mentioned what business is the interview did. Is half our ethnic group, half our white, who are the business. And we need to do that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
That's a great question.
Yes, sir.
I'm very glad you asked that question, and this is a very broad-based report. Yeah. And I'm happy to say that we operate the Valley Sierra Small Business Development Center. Our new director is Herman Zavalza from Turlock, and we started 2 years ago a Latino business outreach program. And in the last 2 years, we've been able to onboard 100 Latino businesses to our Small Business Development Service. And so I'm not going to say the name of our campaign because we have to run that by our leadership council. But I think if you heard the name, you'd be very pleased. It really, what you said about inclusion is very important. And this plan is all about inclusion. It's all about reaching all businesses and all people within our county. And I just didn't put it in the report because I only have 15 minutes, and I could spend a half an hour talking about the topic that you just addressed.
How about the board member? How many board members, sir? 9?
We have a total of 6. Yep, and we're looking to always increase that. So thank you very much, and it's been a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. White. Okay, now we're going to move on to public comment. And is everyone okay with that?
Are you sure, sir?
I've got 5 helpers up here, and they let me mess it up. So yes, we're going to move on to public comment. Again, there's a little light up there when the red light comes up, or yellow light, I think it's 30 seconds. Red light is when it's time to stop. The first speaker is going to be Miguel Donoso, and next up is going to be Ty Merriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right now it's passing the paper that I'm going to speak. And please, you read carefully, not the letter, the introduction, but the first attached in page 1. Can you read that before? I'm going to say to you that in one time in 2019, Mr. Hayes introduced the new order of the work regard to the program of continual care and asked to a new restructure of the continual care, a different group they call Stanislaus Homeless Alliance. The Homeless Alliance is not a legal entity. The continual care is a legal entity. And where our question is why Mr. Whitro have 2 roles in that 2 boards. And for us, it's a conflict of interest, and to see how Mr. Whitro was appointed to the board, at the same time, he's a member of the Board of Supervisors and support programs and funding. So we're going to ask the district attorney, the State Department, and the federal department to ask for investigation in the concept of the conflict of interest in regard to the guidelines or the HOT guidelines in regard to the 3 main issues of conflict of interest. If you look at the last page of the attached, you can see clear the conflict of interest under the federal guidelines of the government. The last page, Mr. Vito, in regard to how you can see clear, no matter what is go, Mr. Whitro, he's continued to be in conflict of interest. We're talking about fundings, and we're talking about programs, federal, local, and state fundings. So we're going to ask to the district attorney, the State Department, and the HOT department to do investigation regard to that. Because in the first page of the attached, it says clear that the continual care now have the capacity to continue as a board, you don't have the adequate structure, you don't have the leadership, at the same time turn around and say, I create a new group they call Stanislaus Homeless Alliance. Why he not supposed to do that? And yet he's in the board. So I'm questioning that and asking for the investigation. At the same time, Mr. Chairman and board members, I support the parents. They're going to speak pretty soon in regard to the issue of the mask. Thank you, sir.
Thank you much. Okay. Next up, we have Ty Merriam, and on deck is Don Reese.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you're going to hear lots of talk about masks today. So I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to tell you I'm a parent of 3 school-age children. I'm not going to talk about statistics on COVID risk for kids. Those have been going around for months. And it doesn't seem to be the driving force behind scientific decision-making with mask mandating for kids. So I want to talk to you about choice. The choice for individuals, teachers, students, parents to make a decision for themselves. The greatest God-given right that every single person has in this room is that choice. So by mandating mask wearing, you're strong-arming children, parents, educators to choose between a piece of material covering their face and access to education. The glory of education is providing information to students, giving them evidence of pros and cons about whatever subject matter at hand. They have a choice to make after that. They take that information, they make a decision for themselves. When you force a child to wear a mask, you're taking that choice away. You're taking part of their education away. You're muting their voices. You're stripping them from nonverbal communication with their teachers and peers. You make their teachers a faceless person. I'm asking for middle ground. Allow students to make choices. Allow them to be active participants in their education. Allow them to assess their own risk with their parents and their teachers and in their own communities to make that decision for themselves. So I'm asking you for middle ground to please help what you can in this matter. I know your hands are tied by state regulations, but part of that is standing up. Look at all of these parents, making that, being the voice for their children. So just help us with where you can to allow choice to be an option for each individual student. Thank you.
So Don is up, and then Melissa Cortines is next. And before you get going, I'm glad you had said something, Ty. This is a CDC and CDPH guidelines. It's not the Board of Supervisors, but that doesn't mean, I know there's an ask, but I just want to make that very clear that it's not us requiring these.
Thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm Dawn Reese, and I'm here on behalf of my 2 grandsons that are in the audience and their 2 siblings who are at home. Their parents would be here, but time constraints with working and out-of-state obligations. My prior life, before retiring and becoming an Uber Nana, I was a child development director at Waterford School District, and I also taught child development to juniors and seniors in our ROP program. With that knowledge, I understand and I know how important visual cues are for children to be able to look at somebody when they're speaking. If they're having a hearing issue, they need to be able to look at the lips. They need to know the context. Was she smiling when she said that? Was she frowning when she said that? Children who have hearing issues need to be able to do that. Children who have speech issues need to be able to speak freely without a mask on their face. How many of us have been at the grocery store with a mask on and we've said, huh? How many times? Because we cannot understand and we can hear. So we're impairing our children. When we're putting a mask on their face, we are being detrimental to their learning experience, just as the previous lady had said. The 99, let me go back here. There are studies from the University of Louisville, MIT, that show masks and social distancing it's ineffective for really cutting down on the COVID. So our issue is we're going to limit our children's access to education when it's really not an effective thing that is happening to them. And also near and dear to my heart is the vaccine, and so I'm up here, I'm going to speak to that. Research shows that children are not a source of any significant spread, and many of our schools in this country and county and world are not enforcing mask mandates, and many countries are not mandating the vaccine because of the health issues for young children with that. We're a pro-vaccine family. My grandkids have had more vaccines than my kids have because they were tried and the trials were proven and vetted that it made a big difference and it was a good idea. Parents need to have the choice about whether or not they are going to give an unproven vaccine to their children. mRNA has not been vetted it wasn't vetted in humans up until the recent pandemic. And we should not be putting something in our children's system that we don't know what's going to happen later on in their lives. So as parents, as the previous lady said, we should have a choice about what is happening to our children, whether it's the Board of Supervisors, whether it's the state making these mandates. They're not the parents of these children. making these decisions, and they're not the ones that's going to be living with the consequences of their decisions. Parents need to have the rights to make the decisions for their children, not something that's mandated by something that we don't even know is. And for our family, we believe that strongly enough that if the vaccine is mandated, we're going to have to look for other educational experiences for our children, because that's not something that should be happening to our children. And I thank you for this.
Thank you, Donna. Melissa Martinez, followed by Jeffrey Martinez. Morning.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Melissa Martinez. I emailed all of you yesterday evening, and I just wanted to say thank you, Chairman Chiesa and Mr. Chance Condit, for your very gracious responses to me. I appreciated that. The rest of you, I know I emailed it yesterday, so you might not have gotten to it late yesterday, so you might not have gotten to it yet. Again, I'm Melissa Martinez. I teach 4th grade at Walnut Elementary School. My husband is Turlock School District Board Member Jeffrey Martinez. He's right over there. I just wanted to say, I just wanted to read a few key points from the email that I had already sent you guys. And I just also wanted to add, I know you guys aren't in charge of the regulations for COVID or anything like that, but I do know that it is within your power to adopt the Healthy Children Resolution. And I know that Mr. Withrow is familiar with that. And I know that that is something that you guys could do on your at your next board meeting. It could be added to your agenda. So my whole purpose in being here is to advocate for that item to be added to your agenda. So let me just go ahead and read this for you guys. I know that these are difficult times for all of us, but I had hoped the worst was behind us. After a chaotic school year of distance learning, switching to in-person, kids moving back and forth from distance learning back to in-person all throughout the year, even in May, we never had a real sense of settlement. We followed all of the guidelines as directed because we knew the alternative was going back to Zoom learning, which was unacceptable to most of us. The fact that we made it work did not make it okay. Keeping their desks 3 feet apart in class was workable, but also not okay. I don't think many people realize how much it takes away from children when they're not allowed to collaborate together, to work together, to have teamwork, when they're isolated physically in the classroom. There were points in the school year when they couldn't even toss a ball back and forth to each other, even if they put gloves on. That did lighten up, but it was a very strange experience for them, and we heard a lot about the emotional, social, emotional well-being of the kids, yet at the same time, we were forced to impose many, many restrictions on them while they were in class, and it just felt very, it just felt very extreme. They need to work together, they need teamwork. I need to be able to pull small groups and work with them when they need help. They shouldn't just be an island on their own in my classroom. I can walk around, but then someone on the other side of the classroom is, maybe not quite on task, and I'm over here working with when I could be able to solve these problems with teamwork and small groups. I couldn't even walk around my classroom without bumping into something or someone half the time. We also ended up having a desk shortage at our school site due to the sudden need for individual desks all the way down to kindergarten. If you would have walked into a 1st grade classroom, it would have been a very sad experience for you to see. The children weren't allowed to have centers, there was no tables, and it was just individual desks, rows and rows of them like a 4th grade classroom for these little 6-year-old children, and it was very heartbreaking for many of us teachers to see that. I've been greatly discouraged to read that it looks like the next school year is going to be more of the same. I sent you all emails, in my email, the links to the news articles about how the masks can cause 13 times the rate of carbon dioxide in the children's blood levels. That research came from Bloomberg. I also sent you about the consistent usage of masks. A clean mask at the beginning of the school day, by the end of the school day, covered in dangerous pathogens like pneumonia, meningitis, just to name a few. And they also sent away the children's shirts with the masks that they wore that day, and the shirts did not test for those pathogens. And they also sent clean masks, and those were the control group. So it's a really gross thing to, when you think about it, to have to enforce on these kids all day. The COVID-19 vaccine is widely available for people who are vulnerable or who need it. Those who do not need it are well aware of the risks at this point. It should be a choice for everybody. I can't stop wondering why I was able to take my own children to Disney World mask-free a few weeks ago. I was able to get on an airplane, fly to Florida, go to Disney World, get in line with thousands of strangers from around the world with no masks, but I can't come back to my own classroom and teach the same group of kids in a structured environment consistently day to day without the mask. I don't understand the logic behind that. And again, I know it's not necessarily coming from you guys, but it's just out there. And I'd like you guys to help us and stand up and fight for these kids and do what's right for them and get that Healthy Children's Resolution on your agenda, please, and we can hopefully go forward from this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Jeffrey Martinez, followed by Veronica Gonzalez.
Hi, good morning, County Supervisors and County Administrators. Just to make it clear, I am a unified school district board member for Area 6 at Turlock. I'm not here on any school board meeting. This is my personal time, and I speak personally, so it doesn't represent the board or the views, just in case somebody wants to take it out of context. Never happens, right? Two things. I came here today. I wanted to thank you all personally. Back in February, I had emailed this board about a question of whether, because it was brought to our board, that the county is being more restrictive than the state on guidelines about contact tracing that was prevent us from opening. I think Terry, Vito, and Buck actually brought Dr. V here to the board meeting and asked her the question very directly and bluntly: is the county more directive or more restrictive than the state? And she said no. So the very next day, I guess one of the administrator at the school is running, and actually emailed the county supervisor, can I get that in writing? There was no writing ever sent. So you guys helped us discover a big kind of loophole in there that was preventing us from opening, and that kind of led the way for us. So thank you very much. I don't know if you guys know you did that or not, but it was very helpful. And I think you guys have been great throughout the whole process. I think giving the power back locally to the cities and to the school districts to let them make the choice that's best for them is the thing to do. So thank you for that. And the second reason I'm here today is to kind of speak on the mask mandate. I know it lies with CDC and CDPH, or California Department of Public Health. Their laws are forever changing, and every time something new happens, and I pray every day, like, just make this go away. Like my wife said, we went to Florida. My brother moved out of state to South Carolina. His kids are going. They ban masks where they are. We're actually on an airplane, and the stewardess taking us there actually lived in Florida, and we got to talking to her. We actually didn't wear masks on the way to Florida in the airplane. So if you talk about 3 feet distancing, the new regulations that I'm kind of reading into them late last night is it sounds like you're going to be within 3 feet of somebody, that you're going to have to wear a mask whether you're vaccinated or not. So it sounds like the whole classroom, the whole staff is just going to be masked until the end of time. I just can't see us going through this another year. Like I said, I prayed this would just go away, but it looks like it's not. We're here today. We're probably not respecting the 3 feet rule, but I think people at this point needs to be a personal choice. If the county can look into that healthy resolution, I think that would be a good alternative or something. I really encourage the county to do something, and we need to find a way to bring that power back locally to the county level, to the city level, and to the school district level. I emailed our County Board of Education at about the same time back in February. 0 responses from them. I would think from a board member to another board member, at least the respect, hey, I don't agree with you, Mr. Martinez, or, my views are a little bit different, but, let's talk about it someday. But, 0 feedback, so, it is what it is, but we got to do something, because this is not acceptable. These parents, these kids deserve something. Because of the whole situation, I actually pulled my daughter out of TUSD, and I put her in a private school. So she's been maskless the whole of last year, which has been nice. She was in 1st grade, so she fell under that 2nd grade and younger. But then I'm looking at TUSD students, I'm like, man, this is not right. And then we actually had a board member right before he resigned that said during a board meeting, we should mask children 2nd grade and under. And the other board members were like, yeah, let's do that. We're gonna make it safer out there for everyone. Although I don't agree with that ideology, they voted to do that, and I was the sole one that said we're not going to mask kids 2nd under. My reasoning was it was not based on medical advice or medical whatever. There was no medical decision involved. So TUSC actually went to the extreme and masked kids 2nd grade and under for the last year, and I feel that's only going to continue. So if you can imagine these kids starting off their career, trying to learn, trying to read, trying to interact, trying to make friends. I mean, always put your children first, put everybody's children here first, and just, I think the county needs to do something, take some sort of action, you know, not just sit back and say, hey, it's a state level, it's a CDC level. If the county could come up with a way to kind of bring it back locally, allow the school districts to pick it up from there, I think a combination of the two working together could come up with a great solution. Thank you.
Before you leave, Jeffrey, so you've been very consistent in all the emails you've sent out. I appreciate that because, you know, in these issues, our public health officer was pulled in 1,000 different directions back. You know, we can go from March of last year through about March of this year. And I thought at that point, sometimes there's too many layers at the school and at the county, and we're talking around. And so I introduced your superintendent to Jody Hayes, our CEO, and they took care of the issue, whatever the issue was. And so the joke is, the greatest thing I've ever done for TUSD is introduce Jody to your superintendent. So it wasn't anything I've done. Very funny. And has your board taken action on this or tried?
It has not come up that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Or it hasn't come up. You know, I know it's going to be coming. These regulations are new. You know, they're just all coming out. They're developing this past week.
Yeah, our Health Services Agency officer got an email just this morning that I think the governor's office had walked back some of the way the mandate was structured.
And thank you for the reflection on last year. I will offer again that if there's anything we can do to work with the school districts just to clarify any misunderstandings about information from the County Public Health Office, we're happy to do it. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Veronica Gonzalez, followed by Grace Curry. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me here. So, like I said, my name is Veronica Gonzalez, and I'm a longtime resident of Stanislaus County, about 35 years now. I have two boys, ages 10 and 16. One's autistic, and one has a pretty severe learning disability. My youngest was very excited to go back to school in May when they offered that opportunity. And after one day of going back to school, I pulled him from school back to this long distance learning, which has failed our students. I asked him how his day was, and he said, Mom, it was horrible. He said they weren't even allowed to go outside and get fresh air. They got one break, but they couldn't even take their mask down to get some fresh air. They're like, put your mask on. Don't get close to your friends. I'm like, what kind of environment or normalcy is that? And it doesn't even make sense when you can't even go outside to get some fresh air. And he said he had to lie and act like he was drinking water from his water bottle, and they weren't even told in what direction to pull their mask down. And my kids go to a charter school and have since kindergarten. And then and he ended up coming home with a headache, and I was like, this is just ridiculous when you can't even breathe some fresh air, take breaks, and have that desire to socialize, and how it's affected my kids, emotionally as well. And we all worry about that because suicide rate has been at an all-time high with children. I belong also to a group text with other teachers that couldn't be here, and they started sharing some of the experiences as teachers and some of the feedback they're getting from other counties, and I just think it's important to share. I mean, I honestly feel it's like a form of child abuse. One of their students practically passed out, started hyperventilating. That child never returned back to class. In some schools, they were actually denied water. They were told, well, too bad, they should have brought more water from home, when supposedly all the water fountains were not working correctly. And sometimes you go back and reflect time, and I thought about this, like, what time are we living right now? And I don't know if you guys have read that book, The Scarlet Letter, but I feel like in this case, we're kind of, a war has causes, like, we're going to wear, like, if you're unmasked or unvaccinated, the U on your chest. And I really just feel we've become a society of just bullying, through social media. I've even engaged, not putting anyone down, but like even leaders, teachers on Facebook, it's like, wow, this is very ugly. It's like, what example, if we send our children to say, don't bully anyone else, what are we doing as adults? It's like, we really have become a society of just adult bullying. So I just want to say, thank you for your time, and just please just help us take a stand and let us have that choice.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Next up, we have Grace Curry, followed by Kimberly Valente.
Good morning. My name is Grace Curry, and I'm going into 8th grade at Emily J. Ross Middle School in Houston. I am here today to speak out against the mask mandates for all school children. I first want to say how appreciative I am of the Houston Unified School District for working so hard last year to get us back into in-person hybrid learning as soon as they could. And then to be one of the first schools in our county to open to all grades to in-person learning full-time. In-person learning is so much better than forced Zoom learning. Although I look forward to in-person learning this fall, I'm concerned we'll still have to wear masks, social distance, and quarantine. Even if we've been vaccinated. Every person in the U.S. above the age of 12 has the choice to get vaccinated if they want to. Because of this, no adult should be fearful that I will spread the virus to them. The CDC says that it is very unlikely for me or my 2 younger brothers to spread the virus to people. Even if we were to catch COVID-19 or the variants, the likelihood of us getting really sick and hospitalized are less than the flu, again, according to the CDC. I understand and respect the concerns that many have of the virus, and I believe that family members and their kids should have the choice to wear masks if they feel it's best for them. However, for me, it's hard to breathe and understand and learn in the classroom because I cannot hear my teachers. It is challenging. I want to see my friends smile. I want to see happiness on other people's faces. This past Sunday, we went to a restaurant in Oakdale for breakfast, and I told my dad, "This feels so normal and so great." It made me happy to see everyone with no masks and people socializing and having fun. If I can go to a restaurant and be around my families and friends without a mask or without social distancing, I should be able to do the same in my classroom. I urge each and every one of you to adopt a resolution pushing against the state mask mandates, social distancing, COVID testing, and mandatory quarantine for all school children. Thank you.
We just gotta say, I don't know, most of you couldn't see how Grace had most of that speech memorized. I wish we could give speeches like that. That was great.
So it took everything in my power when she said Emily J. Ross for me not to go whoop, whoop, whoop. Because I graduated from there, and Mr. Jepson, who was my English teacher in my 8th grade year, told me about a month before school was out, I had 2 chances of graduating, slim and none. So I got everything back in order. Anyways, thank you very much for coming in, Grace. We have Kimberly Valente, followed by Kira Williams.
Okay, hello. I'm Kimberly Valente. I also emailed you guys. I'm a school psychologist from Modesto City Schools. I also teach consciousness in the community, conscious behavior, conscious thought, conscious action. I preach conscious leadership to anybody who will listen. I have been in the field of child development since I've been a child, ultimately, but since I was for over 20 years. Anybody that knows me knows how passionate I am about wellness in all human beings, especially our children and especially our public school children. I have spoken for hours to anybody who will listen about the community's failure to serve our children and our families in all communities. I'm actually really proud to be a part of this community today. I've never been a part of this kind of experience. I think I'm learning a lot. In my role for advocating for children, it just makes no sense. None of this makes any sense, that's the stuff that's going on right now. As several people have already said, when we take our children to places like bowling alleys and birthday parties and airplanes and restaurants and jiu-jitsu practice, and then they go into a classroom where a mask is now just a uniform because it makes no other sense in any other way. It is not benefiting them health-wise. It's not benefiting their physical, social, emotional, mental, spiritual health on any level, not one. The fact that we now, as educators, now people who are maybe don't really know where they stand on it, they're put in positions to enforce rules that they may or may not agree with, to be maybe harsh with children who have other things going on in their world that like the mask is just, it's just such just one more thing to throw into the mix of ways to divide us as people and as a community. When we pay attention to what's going on in the world right now, a weakened, fractured community is what's going to serve the powers that be more than anything else, and I think that's what it's really about. I don't really think this is about us or you guys or our local public school districts. I think everybody feels like their hands are tied, but the fact that we think that our hands are tied is the problem. The fact that they've convinced us that we're powerless is the problem. The fact that we have adults that are willing to engage in abusive practices with children, abusive, it's downright abusive, and to our communities, and to not even notice that we can't look people in the eye or like, I mean, I don't have to, I know that I'm speaking to everybody, we're all here, we've all done this last 2 years together. It's heartbreaking. And I think that there are communities and there are states that are getting it together. They're doing it from here, they're doing it from this level, they're doing it on their streets, they're doing it on their blocks, because it's not going to come from up top. That guidance is not going to change. The CDC, the CDE, it's not going to change. I'm quite aware of that. I also pray every day for this to stop and end, and it's not. So it's clear to me that we're being called to do something more together. I think despite what I see on TV, despite what I see on my social media feed, what I see when I go out into the world are people like me, people who feel like I do, who at least, even if they don't feel the same way as I do on every issue that I feel it, they're not what they're acting like it's going to be like on TV. What concerns me, though, is that our public school children are like the greatest number of any population in the nation are public school students. They educate everybody, and they're mandated to go. And most parents don't have the opportunity to choose. They don't have the ability to choose. They don't have the freedom or the money to choose. They're publicly being served this agenda that is not serving them or their families. What I also see is that masks are symbolic. They have been symbolic since the dawn of time. Anybody that knows anything and is willing to look and research into that, it is symbolic and has been since the dawn of time. It is not keeping them healthy. It's keeping them silent. It's keeping us divided. It's keeping us from remembering that we're human beings. We communicate. We communicate through way more than even facial expression. That just puts up a wall. And it's done on purpose. So on top of that, the people that are administering this guidance, they know what they're doing. We need to know. The amount of money that's been spent on PPE, ventilation systems, the complete overhaul of our entire cities and public facilities, and the amount of money that could be spent on things related to wellness, mental, spiritual, physical, social health, the things that would make a difference, that absolutely would make a difference, is if everybody was just happy, that felt safe, that felt like they were protected and supported. Every child, every family member, every community member, if they felt that way, they would be healthier, period, hands down. I don't need to go into all the ways that people are dying alone, et cetera, that people are getting sicker because they're alone. Do I really need to go into the numbers of drug use that our youth are engaging in, not wanting to go to school? They don't want to go to work. Our economy is suffering because kids don't even want to go to work. Adults don't even want to go to work. They're getting paid to stay home. The amount of money that's being funneled for people to just stay silent and accept this and think that it's okay or that it's for our community's best interest, it is an agenda
Kimberly,
against us.
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up.
Thank you. I'm only asking you guys to please just remember these things. And if you are in the community, to think for yourselves and lead for yourselves. And I know that it's not really you guys against us.
Thank you for coming
Thank you
in.
for listening.
Carol Williams, followed by Samuel Bosshart.
Hi, my
Morning.
name is Kira, and I'm a parent of 5, and I have a high schooler who has an eye condition along with ADHD and asthma, and this past school year, he'll be a senior this year, but when he first started his schooling education, he had A's and B's. This past school year, I didn't even know there was a GPA as low as he had. It was very heartbreaking to just see that decline in him. And he also has a 504 plan, which is accommodation from the school to help him with his education and the different learning disabilities that he has. And having an eye condition and being on a computer all day, those two things do not go well together. And the accommodations that were supposed to be helping in the school year, we couldn't do those things. So it was just a real challenge for him to be able to get his education. He also plays sports, and so he had to test twice a week for COVID. They had to wear masks to play sports. And I don't know if you've played sports, but trying to breathe and run and do those things, they don't go well together. So that has been a real challenge, and he did actually decide not to do some sports because of that. It was just too much of a challenge, and also having asthma. Also, just thinking about, he chose not to go to prom. Who wants to go to a prom wearing a mask? You can't even, I mean, that's what everybody does, you know, go to prom. That's a memory you have from high school. That's not a memory for him. I also have other children that one of them has dyslexia, and my other child has type 1 diabetes, which, you know, that can be considered a high-risk condition that she has. We have chosen, you know, to still live our lives. We did choose to homeschool them last year, which is challenging to work full-time and homeschool. We had to do weekends, nights. I mean, our lives were not, we didn't get to enjoy our lives because we were trying to balance so many things. Let's see, I'm sorry. We feel like for our family, if we wanted to send our children to school, that's our choice. If there's parents that have concerns, like I said, my daughter has a condition that she could get really sick, but we've made that choice that we want to send her to school. If parents want to keep their kids at home because they're concerned about their health, that's their choice. But for us not to be able to send our kids and teach them distance learning when my son basically failed last year, that doesn't seem right to me. Like, we should have that option. And like a lot of people said, we went on vacation. We were at the boardwalk a couple weeks ago, sitting next to complete strangers. It just doesn't make any sense at all. I also wanted to just state that, where is it? Sorry. I also am an employee for Modesto City Schools. I've been working in the child development preschool program for over 20 years. And it was so heartbreaking last year to see 3 to 5-year-olds. They can barely, you know, go to the bathroom by themselves, let alone trying to put this mask on their face. And some of them are crying for their mommies, boogers. I mean, it made no sense. Like, I just felt my heart was just breaking for them. Plexiglass and all of those other things as well. And then I also, I'm hard of hearing. I wear hearing aids. I just got them. But last year I had no hearing aids, so I'm wearing a mask. They're wearing a mask. I'm trying to hear what they're saying through plexiglass. It was horrendous. Like, I couldn't even get observations from students or anything because I could not hear them. I could not hear the staff. We had actually an incident on the playground with a student. My coworkers yelling for me, "Hey, this kid's, you know, I need help." Didn't hear them because, you know, they're wearing a mask, and it was just not a good situation. I also just want to ask that the board just stand up for all of us and request that the CDC and the California Department of Health that they make masks a choice. Roseville and Rockland school districts have already sent their request, and I feel like we need that too, if you could please do that. And just remember that these are only recommendations, they are not laws. Thank you.
Next up, Samuel Bosshard, followed by Samantha Tajeda.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Good leadership at the local level is a blessing. I was reminded of that recently in Atwater at their 4th of July concert and fireworks show. I think thousands went, and they went with picnic blankets and fold-up chairs. It was refreshing to see hundreds of smiling and laughing children in all directions running around with beach balls, playing with each other, oblivious to race. Apparently, critical race theory ideology hadn't been pushed on them. Most adults had visible smiles too. Many people don't know this, but in May 2020, Atwater declared themselves a sanctuary city for business. This was when small businesses and churches were shut down by COVID-19 restrictions imposed by Governor Newsom and the state bureaucracy. I also read that the city managed to finish paying off its debts near the end of 2020, despite the withholding of funding by Governor Newsom in retaliation. Today, a lot of people in the community, people who aren't in this room as well, think we might be in sort of a calm before the storm. Some narratives in the mainstream media feature COVID variants. Many of these narratives function in a way as a psychological weapons being used on the public, causing division, fear, and hate between believers and non-believers. COVID-19 vaccine narratives and mandates also do this. They drive division, fear, and hate. The same can be said about critical race theory, ideology, deceptive narratives that foster tribalism, mistrust, division, fear, and hate. It doesn't end there either. There are several other narratives that follow this pattern. Marxism uses divide and conquer tactics, upsetting the social order to take root in a country. If not stopped, it brings violence, destruction, death, and overthrow of the government. I feel like we're under attack on many levels. The oath of office that we take, first and foremost, declares that we will support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Marxism cannot coexist with the Constitution of the United States. One will prevail. As members of the Board of Supervisors, I assume that you all took on this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you are faithfully discharging the duties. And for that, I thank you. The good news is we are on the winning side. We must not give in to the temptation of sacrificing liberty for the promise of safety or for popularity or political expediency or public health or even to appease an angry mob. We residents need sanctuary. We need restoration of normalcy and liberty. We need you to stay strong and protect us by not giving in to fear. As Franklin Roosevelt said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Samantha Tajeda, followed by Caroline Nunes. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. First, I just want to say my name is Samantha Tajeda. I am an educator here in Stanislaus County. My entire education is actually throughout Stanislaus County, elementary, middle school, high school, college. I received my teaching credential, my master's in education, and my administrative credential. And I tell you that because I have networked with some of the best teachers and best administrative leaders in this county, and I would argue best in our state, possibly even in our nation. This is important because my daughter is starting kindergarten next year, but not through our public county education system. And I'm sorry, I'm very emotional because this is very important to me. My teaching experience, the kids in this county are very important to me. Now, I know our hands are tied with everything everybody's been talking about, so I'm not going to mention that. What I would like to see from our board is that on our next board meeting, we have the Healthy Children's Resolution Act on that, and that we pass that, because something that we can do as a county is we can send that letter to our county governor, or to our California governor, and to the California Department of Public Health to let them know how our county feels. That is really important for us, because bottom line, kids deserve to come to school with the choice of how they feel safe, with or without a mask. They deserve to see a smile, because a smile makes them feel happy and safe. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Let's say Caroline Nunes, followed by Nancy Petty.
Good morning, Board Supervisors and Board Administrators. My name is Caroline Nunes, and I'm a secondary math teacher at Turlock High School. I am here to request that masks are made optional next school year. I am also asking that you add the Healthy Children's Resolution to the agenda, just as the previous people have stated. I'm so excited to have a more normal school year, and I'm looking forward to the hard work that my students, my colleagues, and I will be doing to catch up on all that we lost during distance learning, academically, socially, and emotionally. However, I'm disappointed in the lasting impact we have left on our young students over the last school year. I have watched previously successful students become unmotivated. Some of my most outgoing, confident students become anxious, and I have felt the inability to truly connect to my students through their masks. After this previous school year, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to start a school year with students back on campus, but I know the students and their parents deserve more. The students deserve a normal educational experience, one not hindered any further by the decisions of people who sit in your seats. The parents deserve the right to choose what is best for their family, whether that be a vaccine and/or a mask. The CDC guidelines state that people who are fully vaccinated do not need to wear masks. All staff, and at the secondary level, all students, have had the opportunity to receive the vaccine prior to next school year. Allow families the option to choose a vaccine or to choose a mask. Many students, parents, and staff members are ready to adhere to the CDC guidelines, but are resistant to follow more strict guidelines that have no scientific backing. If masks are required, I fear this will become an enforcement issue. My job is to educate the students in my classroom, connect to them, and connect them to each other. My job is not to go above the experts at CDC and enforce more strict guidelines than science deems necessary. I am asking you to make masks optional. Allow me to educate my students in a normal school setting and allow my students' parents the right to make the best medical decision for their family. Thank you.
Thank you much. Next up, Nancy Petty, followed by Amanda Maines.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors and administration. As a parent of 3 public school children in our county and as a secondary teacher myself, I ask you to stand with us and our children regarding masks, especially in the classroom. With the time I have, I would like to share 2 personal stories that illustrate how irrational it is to mask students in the classroom, especially the K-6 level. I'm going to start with one of my 3 children who is very much a rule follower, doesn't mind wearing a mask. He would wear a mask to bed if any of you, his parents, his teachers, told him that that's what he should do or that that was the rule. However, after several weeks of being back at school, this child, for the first time ever, is crying that he doesn't want to go back to school the next day. And through conversations, I realize it's because his glasses fog up. And so I have coached him, hey, it's okay when you're at your desk. You can put your mask just under your nose while you work. You know, you're sitting forward, you're in your little space, it's okay. No, Mom, I did that. You know, it's okay, well, what happened? Did your teacher say something? And of course, the rule follower he is, knowing that that's not okay, looks up to have the teacher motioning to him to bring up his mask. It's unnecessary that he's feeling this way. He has to have his glasses to read. He has to have them to do the work at school. And that's very frustrating for a child like that. How do I explain to him? You know, I'm lying to him when I tell him he needs that mask. The people around him need that mask. Anybody around him, yes, if there's COVID and they take it home, all of those parents, older siblings have had a chance to be vaccinated, still have a chance to be vaccinated before school starts. My child should not have to be experiencing that at school. Any of our children should not have to be experiencing this at school. And then just again to my second personal story is, and someone already brought up Boardwalk, but it's not really a place that we frequent, but we happened to be there on Sunday, packed. The lines we were in were ridiculous. No one's wearing masks. Like if masks were necessary in the classroom, the Boardwalk would have been news story about the outbreaks that were going. There's no logic behind masking these children in the class that see each other every single day. Thank you so much for your time. Please stand with us.
Thank you. Next up we have Amber Maines, followed by Michael Nessel.
Hello.
Good morning.
My name is Amber Martinez, and I have 3 children in the Ceres Unified School District, one of which already struggles with speech. I understand that this is a California state mandate. However, this board is our board of elected representatives. You are our voice. I am pleading with you to add your voices to the voices of the many parents who are concerned about our children's mental health and welfare. I have watched my children go from straight A students who were eager to learn to children who cry before school. All meanwhile watching thousands of foreign people at Disneyland with no masks, no social distancing. I, for one, cannot bear to look at the face of my tear-stained children while they question why they have to wear masks, why they can't breathe, and why they can't play with their friends, and not be able to tell them that I at least stood up for them. Other states are not requiring masks, but are full out banning them, and I am just asking for the choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amber. Michael Nessel, followed by Sev. Hey, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Michael Nessel, resident of Oakdale, father of 2 children, one in Oakdale and one in Riverbank. I think the message is pretty clear from everybody else, so speak it quick. We kept our 2 kids home from school this year because we weren't going to send them back to wear a mask. We don't know what sort of long-term damage this is going to have on our kids psychologically, so we made that decision. But this next school year, kids need interaction, so if they're going to have to go back with a mask, we're going to have to find somewhere else, like the other lady said. We're not going to send them to public school because we're not going to deal with that again. And our house is right next to an elementary school in Oakdale, and I had to hide at home this year while I worked, so it actually allowed us to keep the kids from home. But it was just so sad every day watching kids walking to school, heads down, with their slave mask on as they walked to school. It was pathetic and it was sad. And the last thing I want to say, as far as our experience with this, our daughter just finished kindergarten, and how embarrassing it was to sit there and watch her graduate from kindergarten, spaced out from everybody, with a mask on. And I was against it, but I thought, we're not going to let our daughter miss her kindergarten graduation. But it was embarrassing, and it was just frustrating to watch. Everybody keeps saying, oh, your hands are tied. I disagree. The state is requiring certain things, but the state's a mess. Our governor's getting recalled, so why are we listening to him? Let's make decisions for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Sev, followed by Shannon Lynn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Seth. I'm here from Oakdale. I got 3 kids that have gone to school here. And I look at you guys, and I see a bunch of intelligent-looking people.
You misjudged us.
You're right, I probably have, unfortunately. So I'm just really mind-boggled by all of this, to be honest with you folks. I really am. I don't know how it is that we got 7, 8, 3, 6, 7 men here. And not a single one of you can look at yourselves and say, God, something's wrong here. What's wrong here? Not a single one of you guys? Nobody? Nobody's got the backbone to stand up for children? Nobody? Not a single one of you? I've called the schools, I've called the districts, I spoke to Maxine, I spoke to Stanislaus County Public Health, I spoke to everyone. Who has the goddamn balls? Who's got the balls to stand up for these kids? Who? None of you? You have children? None of you have children? I find that impossible. What's wrong? What's wrong, sir? Can I ask you? Is there something...
Did you show up late? I did make a statement in the beginning. Were you here when we started?
I wasn't here.
Okay. It's just, this is the Board of Supervisors. I'm just, hold on.
Can I make my time?
So I'll give you your time.
Thank you.
So the Board of Supervisors is not the Governor's Office, the California CDC, or CDPH. The Board of Supervisors that don't have oversight. You're asking today, I've heard many speakers asking us to do a resolution. That's what I've heard from people. We don't have the power to change it. We have the power to do something like a resolution. So just so you understand, I made that comment in the very beginning, just to differentiate.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Who does? Because I've asked this question a ton of times. I've asked the superintendent. I've talked to the city schools. I've talked to Stanislaus County Public Health. None of them have the cojones to... I've asked, where's the paper trail? There isn't none. Exactly. There is no paper trail. Where's the paper trail? Nobody's... This is the problem, people. This is why we're frustrated. This is exactly why we're frustrated. This is exactly why we're pissed. Wake up, people. Wake up. Nobody has a paper trail? How freaking impossible is that? How impossible is that? You want paper trail when our asses get busted? But when yours, then it's not, there's no paper trail? Sounds like a crock of crap. This is what it sounds like to me. How come nobody has answers? How come we're shut down a doggone country for a disease that's 99% recovery? Why on earth are we doing this? Why are we doing this to these kids? Why? Somebody explain this to me. Nobody has answers. And that's the most frustrating thing about this. You know what I tell you? I tell everybody in this place, take your kids out of school. Take them out. Don't let them take the money. Take them out of school. They don't deserve our children.
School choice right here.
You guys don't deserve our children. You don't. Not the teachers, not any one of you. Not a single one of you stand up for these darn kids. I remember, I'm 54 years old. Okay? 54 years old. Do you guys remember what 2-a-days were? Does anybody here remember 2-a-days? Or nobody wants to answer the damn question?
Keep going.
Okay, you guys know what 2-a-days are. Why did we stop 2-a-days? Let me give you the answer, because obviously you guys all know, but you don't want to answer the damn question. Okay? The reason why we got rid of 2-a-days is because of heat exhaustion. And now we want our kids to play sports with masks on! What the hell is wrong with you people? You guys don't see the videos of kids going playing track with a mask on and plopping on the ground before they get to the end of the race? You guys don't see nothing? Are you blind? Are we the only ones that see anything? What's going on? We're being lied to. We're being lied to. I will call you guys out. We are being straight up lied to. Period. And we the people, the parents, are the ones that are stupid. Okay? Because they're allowing you guys. We're allowing you guys to do this shit to us. It's pathetic. You ought to be ashamed of your goddamn selves.
Okay, next up we have Shannon Lynn, followed by Debbie Barrera Martinez.
Okay. So
Hey, good morning.
I didn't want to follow that. But, sorry, I'm very uncomfortable with this. I wish my husband was here so I could go and focus on this mask situation, but there's only one of us, so I got to read his little spiel. I do appreciate all of these parents that have been up here and spoken. I do have 2 kiddos. They are special needs. They have started crying constantly because we have family that are continuously moving out of state. We do not have that option. My special needs kiddos, they have all these programs here that some other states do not provide. I can't put them in private schools because of what their needs are. So we're really just stuck. Absolutely stuck, and it's just beyond frustrating. But unfortunately, my husband cannot make it today. He works for the state up in CAL FIRE, but he is passionate, to say the least. Duplicated the gentleman prior to me. When he was found he was unable to attend, he was very upset, but he wanted me to at least read the points and be his voice. So just envision me as a 6'3" man with dark hair and skin from a mix of ethnicities. Due to our time limit, okay, I'm going to skip that because I did already preach mine with my mask. With the concerns of carbon dioxide levels, weakening immune system, and the negative effects on mental health. So we're going to go a different direction. He wanted to start briefly by reading a passage from the California Department of Education's website regarding what is being called Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, which is called Critical Race Theory. This passage is one bullet point from a basic mission statement for the entire course. Ensure that students receive appropriate and non-discriminatory instruction and materials. Ensure the district guidelines, professional development, syllabi, classroom instructions, materials, and other contents of locally developed ethnic studies course meet requirements for presenting potential controversial issues in K-12 public classrooms. While developing instruction and materials, school districts and local education agencies should ensure that instruction and materials are appropriate for those with peoples of all races, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds. Pupils with disabilities and English learners do not reflect or promote directly or indirectly any bias, bigotry, or discrimination against any person or group of persons on the basis of category protected by Section 220 of the Education Code. How can you possibly do this if the essence of the program is inherently discriminatory and racist? An example of what is the curriculum founder under fostering democratic classrooms. Number 1, critique empire building in history and its relationship to white supremacy, racism, and other forms of power and oppression. Here you are suggesting that white people are suppressors and oppressors of others, that there have never and there are no others that ever exist in the racist. Is in of itself racist, with the very next bullet point of the program saying challenge racist, bigoted, discriminatory, imperialistic, colonial beliefs and practice on multiple levels. Basically, you want to teach our children about the perils beset upon them by white, racist, oppressive people, and the next sentence, you're saying you're going to challenge racism and discrimination, etc. You're explaining to the students that all white people are inherently racist and want to oppress others. You are contradicting yourself. Don't you see how dangerous it is to teach racism in the classroom? Racism is taught, it's not inherited. My children are taught never to judge anyone except by their character. If you are so concerned about racism, why are you wanting to teach our children to be racist? Our children should not be judged by God. Our children should only be judged by God and by their personal character. Nothing else matters, period. This course is a waste of time and energy to all involved. It is not your job to teach my children opinion or political views, because that's all it is. It is your job to teach them the facts. You should be teaching them about the Constitution of the United States in detail instead of having them worry about what color their skin is. For this is the country we live in. Teach them that all people are created equal and that all peoples of this nation have the same opportunities, regardless race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or age. Thank you. On behalf of my husband.
Thank you much. And last up, the last speaker card I have is Debbie Martinez.
Good afternoon, members of the Supervisors Governing Board. My name is Debbie Martinez, and I am with We're La Raza Parents Union, and I do believe you guys got one of these flyers along with my business card. I am also with the Latino Community Roundtable. I endorsed some of you here, and I'm proud that 3, I could say, know me. 1, I'd like to get to know. You keep sending us to Stanislaus County Office of Education, but this is what we get. I was the one that exposed the school to prison pipeline in this county. I was the one that went to the board over next door. Manny, I believe you were here when you were with the city trying to fix Modesto City schools. They're currently in federal courts for the school to prison pipeline, for not listening to us parents. I am now the chairperson for Stanislaus County. They came to me from San Diego. There's a gap here. It stops in Bakersfield, and then it picks up in Sacramento. So they got a hold of me. They said, Debbie, I heard you're an advocate. I am. How'd you like to be our chairperson? I will. Let's even the field here. That gentleman said it all for me, because he is right. Who do we call? So I called Washington. United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. What do? Oh, I'm sorry. They are trial attorneys and they investigate voting sections. Our voting sections are decayed, starting at the school. Our boards, I mean, yes, we had one member speak up. He was against all the bias that we have to take as parents and community members, which is wrong. When you have a superintendent making $300 and something thousand a year to give us a bogus military school where they're not setting them up for armed force, they're setting them up for juvenile hall. Come on. Come on. It's not. But yet, constitutions. Who upheld the constitutions when you took your seat? Huh? Who wants to uphold this oath? Because in this book, our parents pack our children's constitutions in their backpacks. Article 1, subsection 28, parentheses F1, in a public school, our children have a right to enter that is safe, secure, and peaceful. These masks are not making it, and who's upholding it? Huh? Who is upholding that little section for our children? Who wants to help support me to make this field even and take the vouchers from the public schools, from the superintendent? I got rid of Pam Abels to put Dr. Noguchi. I mean, come on, you're mayor. Sue, she was on that governing board when we wanted our defibrillators when one of our child died because he couldn't breathe at school. And we had to sanction them. Even the governing board. She was part of it. So why don't you guys go talk to her and have her make a resolution since she's a nurse? She used to sit on Modesto City Schools Governing Board. She used to even be a chairperson. Why don't you go ask her to give us an answer, since nobody has the answers? Somebody needs to do something. Our children don't want to go back to school. Why? Why? Because moms and dads, parents that are doing the second generation, don't have a voice, nor do they have a choice. Send them to school. I can just see myself sitting in a SARS meeting, and by the way, I'm in 20 districts, 3 counties. I'm not on no one's 501c. I'm not on no one's grant. I'm third generation to standing on the constitutions of our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So does anyone else want to speak on the same subject before I go to the last speaker card, which is on a different subject? Okay, seeing no one, moving on to Dan Avila. I think Dan is still here. Uh-oh. Okay, I'll give him a chance to speak if he just stepped outside. Okay.
Can I read it real quick?
Yeah.
So before we move on to the rest of the agenda here, if nobody else wants to speak. Sorry, Dan's coming up.
Chairman, I would like to speak on the subject matter that's before you right now.
Okay.
And
Now come up before you speak.
I'm Dan Leonard, Bronco Wine Company. I'm actually here for a agenda item later on. But I want to let you know that I'm thoroughly impressed and thoroughly enthused by seeing all these young faces in the audience. The parents that have brought him here today, and they're seeing democracy in action. They're seeing the way our country and our government runs. And it's refreshing. And I hope all you parents continue to bring your children and get involved in issues. This is a very personal issue. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm just saying, you've got issues, bring your children, expose them, get them involved, stay involved yourselves. There's a lot of issues. This is an important issue to you. But to address what one of the previous speakers said, that you don't do, I think he said, nothing. Mr. Withrow, a year ago, went public and said, we need to get our children back to school.
Yes, he did. Thank you.
What happened? What happened? He got lambasted by the Modesto Bee. He got lambasted by other media outlets, letters to the editor, and I hope, Terry, right now, I hope you feel vindicated. And I think these folks say, get our kids back to school. Whether it's with or without masks, that's a whole different issue. I'm not going to even go there. There's agencies, there's other, you all know the issue. But the thing is, thank you very much. You were ahead of the game. I think these folks deserve to give you a round of applause.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. Thank you, Dan. And it really wasn't just me. This is a team effort, all of us here. I might have been the voice in front of all this, but it is a team effort in what we do here. First, I want to thank all of you for being here. I mean, this is, you might not think it, but I can tell all of you that it warms our heart to fill this room with people. And we don't get that very often. And so don't think that we don't enjoy this. We do enjoy this. There's certain parts of it that are a little more difficult than others. But we very much enjoy this, and it's feedback that we get that we need to hear. And so we very much appreciate all of you being here. I always say that, this country will never be brought down, I've said this several times, by a foreign invader. It will always be apathy that will crush this country. And there's no apathy here today. And so I very much appreciate that you guys are getting involved. I can tell you I agree with all of you with what you have to say, and I can tell you probably most of us up here feel the same way, have the same feelings that you guys do. As we've said, this is school board. We've said this from the get-go, and tried to encourage you to, and I know you have, address your school boards. And the way you address your school boards, if they don't listen to you, is through elections, right? I mean, elections are how we make a difference. Elections have consequences. So that day will come, that day of reckoning will come with school boards through elections. The teachers union is a very powerful union in this state, as you know. It is so encouraging to see teachers here today and speaking out. And I encourage you to stand up to your unions so that your voices are represented by your unions, your voices, not the leaders of your unions, because they have such a strong influence over your school boards. So I encourage you to stand up to your own unions that you're a part of and let them know that they need to represent you and how you feel about your kids. So again, thank you all very much for being here today. And I'm hoping, I'm looking at our CEO, Jody, that we'll maybe can have some briefings here with the rest of the board members and kind of see where everybody weighs in on this, and then we can come back on this. But thank you all very much for being here today.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call Dan Evel up, public comment. And then when we're done with public comment here, I'll take like a short 2-minute recess so that everyone can, if you feel like leaving, you can leave.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for everyone being here today. I when we came here, I didn't really know, there was going to be people here to get together to, to be worried about things. And it's a struggle, isn't it? Very much so. And, my troubles are few, and I had compared to so many. And I just came here to ask, to really, if I could have a little help, a little direction with our use permit that we've been working on the last while. The county's had, the staff mainly, has had some problems with it, some of the studies that we've done, and I think, and there's some parts of it they probably disagree with it. The studies have been done, for the most part, by very qualified people that are well regarded in their industries and their professions and what the work they've done. That's about all I have to say. It seems like we could do more as far as a county. As far as what what the CDC recommendations are, the unions pull on. I do agree. The unions pull on the boards and that the locals districts, but it does take really all of us working together. We are a strong voice together. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. So I also have to acknowledge we did receive some public comments through email, one from Ramon Rodriguez regarding officer-involved shooting, Jackie Kinamaka for critical race theory and for the mask issue, Susan Fonzie, Joanna Pacheco, Tara Tikhanoff, Katie Mason, and Brandon Tabor on masks, and then Kimberly had talked to Valente, had said she sent a letter in. So I want to acknowledge that. Then I want to quickly ask our Health Services Agency director to come up. I just asked her beforehand because she had gotten an email and understanding through the California Department of Public Health, CDPH, and the CDC has guidelines, federal guidelines, and they're continually changing the speed in which we're going through this pandemic, that we would see rules would come out at noontime and we were expected to implement them the next day. So it's been difficult, but this is our Health Services Agency Director, Marianne Tengowski.
Hello. The state guidance on the school masking guidance was released yesterday afternoon. After the CDC released guidance on Friday, so we're working to understand all of what's in the guidance, and just this morning, and probably from a lot of feedback, we're understanding that there might already be some changes coming in terms of some of the guidance. I don't know exactly what that will be, but it sounds like perhaps more discretion at the local school district level on how to enforce and how to deal with specific issues related to the guidance. But stay tuned. I do know that they were planning on putting out more FAQ information, so we'll continue to learn and watch what the state, how the state moves on this.
Yeah, perfect. And also for the listening public, the county does not have any public health orders in place that mandate masks in schools, or for that matter, outside. We follow state and federal guidelines, and that's where we stand right now. And it's ever moving, because I think what you just said, I think the governor had walked back what had come out yesterday a little bit to give more local control at the school district level. That's what it potentially looks like. So, was it? All right, thank you very much, Marianne. Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute recess, literally 2 minutes, then we're coming right back to our business. Thank you all for coming in. Okay. The board is now back in session after a short break. We are going to move on to the consent calendar. There are two items. We are pulling B5 and B11. Would any other board member like to pull any item? Anyone in the public want to pull any item? Okay, I'll entertain a motion minus B5 and B11.
Motion to approve all items other than B5 and B11.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. On to B5.
Thank you, Chairman Case and members of the board. I do want to just recognize we had an omission in agenda item B5. This is your monthly investment report from the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office, and each month you do receive an attachment that details a lot of the values and market values associated with the county treasury. In this month's report that was attached to the agenda item, we just omitted some information from one column. We have made that adjustment and provided you copies up here on the dais. The clerk also has copies available for any member of the public who are interested. So that was the clarification. We would then seek your approval of item B5 subject to the updated attachment, which is page 2 of the attachment. Thank you.
Okay, so the public can see it by going to the website. It's on the agenda. Has that been clarified on the agenda? It's on.
It has not been updated yet online. It's the market value column on page 2 of the attachment. It's blank online, but we'll be replacing that shortly.
Okay, perfect. All right. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Back to the board for action.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We accept item B5 with the updated attachment.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries again unanimously. On to B11. Supervisor Condit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I pulled this item just because I cannot in good conscience support this item and voting to give myself a pay raise, especially after only serving 7 months. But regardless, would have a hard enough time supporting this no matter the time of my service. I would make an appeal to my colleagues to compromise in excluding elected officials and department heads, which make very generous salaries. Not to say that they don't do a fantastic job for us, because they do. But you must consider our county's median income. You must consider the fact that so many of our residents were either laid off or denied showing up to work due to the circumstances of the pandemic. I would be able to support this item for our lower unrepresented employees, but not for department heads or elected officials. So that would be my official motion moving forward.
Okay. So elected officials and department heads, meaning constitutional officers also, the 6 constitutional officers.
Yes.
Sheriff, district attorney.
Yes, that's correct.
Assessor, treasurer, tax collector, elections, and auditor, controller. There we go. I think I got it all. Okay, so I'm gonna struggle with this one because the department head salaries are set the same way everyone else's salaries. We do salary surveys with our 8 comparable counties, as well as the constitutional elected officers. They're department heads, essentially. I know they are elected, but they're department heads. And we do constitutional officers, and you can correct me, but I think we go out before, during the filing period, we do comps with the same 8 counties, and we come up with a pay scale. And so and we're at the median. We're expected to be around the median. That's what we're shooting for, much like our employees. So, although I appreciate what you're saying, we have recruitment. We're in 2 recruitments right now. We have I guess I look at it this way. Supervisor Condit, we're in a partnership with our employees. Doesn't matter who they are. There's 4,500 of them, and it's a partnership. And back in 2011, we went to our unions. We went to all the employees and asked them for a pay cut. We did PEPRA reform, pension reform 2 years before the state of California. Matter of fact, I think we're the only jurisdiction in California that I've ever found that actually negotiated with our unions. And so in bad times, we were partners. And better times, which, there's money now. We're giving bonuses through the ARPA funds to all our employees because of their dedication. So I just don't, if we put ourselves further behind even in those positions and we're recruiting, we've already got essentially the pepper curse, which I call, because when the governor passed PEPRA, pension reform for everyone, in 2013, you only had a 1-year look back. So any changes anyone made a year earlier, within a 365-day period, it didn't affect the movement of people from different retirement systems. So you have enhanced benefits, and then there's I guess the new tiers, for lack of a better word. So I keep thinking through this that the door swings both ways, and I don't want the door to swing one way one time and not the other way, because we use the 8-county average. Now, if we were talking about the Board of Supervisors, I agree that's a separate discussion that I'm willing to have. But as far as department heads and the constitutional officers, I can't be supportive of that. Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, Chairman Casa and Supervisor Kind of thank you for just the opportunity to add a few things here. And I recognize there's a motion that's on the table, and you'll need to hear that motion and figure out what's best from the Board of Supervisors' perspective. I would like to just add a couple of thoughts, because this wasn't on for a presentation item, so I'll just add some context that may not necessarily be in the agenda report that's in front of you. We've been negotiating with all of our labor groups, almost all of them, over the last 6 months, and we've reached agreement with many of them, which is a positive thing for us. This has been a difficult negotiating environment, but we were fortunate that the board granted some positive authority for us to go out and to negotiate agreements with our labor groups. We have a group of employees at many levels that are not represented by these labor groups. So our tradition and history in the county, and this dates back prior to my time, so this is decades of tradition, is we typically negotiate those agreements, and then we apply similar standards to our unrepresented employees. In this case, that includes managers, confidential assistants who support our management and leadership teams, department heads, and elected officials. The department heads are made up into 2 different groups, as mentioned. Some of them are constitutional officers that were mentioned, our auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, assessor, clerk, recorder, district attorney, sheriff, and so forth. And others are appointed, that are appointed either by this body or myself. And for the elected officials, we do go out in advance of the filing period for each of those positions, and we do some survey data to determine how we should set those salaries. Board member salaries are actually set by county code, and we do look at 8 county jurisdictions in the valley, mainly, and we look to see what would an average be. And then the board actually, by code, says that you're not eligible for any additional increases unless the average salary is 20% below, that the board is at least 20% below that average. So this board has taken the stance for some time now that you will be paid much less than the average of those surveyed counties. And I just did a quick check. Our last survey was in the first quarter budget report of this last fiscal year, and in that report there was only one other county in the valley that had a lower salary than the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors. I just want to bring that to your attention so you're at least aware of where you're currently situated with salary. I would also add that this is not the first time this subject has come up with prior boards or members of the board specifically, or specific elected officials. So we have developed a process or procedure in our county that if any elected official would like to forego a salary increase or any other form of compensation from the county, all you have to do is to put that interest and request in writing to the county auditor controller, and the county auditor controller will affect that change on your individual pay and compensation so that you do not receive the compensation. That has been a nice compromise in the past so that individuals can make those decisions on an individual basis while not, I guess, challenging the many other issues that come along with changing the compensation system for some of these department head positions. So I'm going to leave it at that and happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Hayes, would you happen to know the average of our salaries for our department heads offhand?
I do not have an average, but it wouldn't take us too long to get there.
Sure. And again, this is my issues with the 3% for the next 3 years for department heads and elected officials. That's merely it. This is, again, no disrespect to our department heads. You do a fantastic job. This is just with my conscience and my principles that with the time of COVID and with our workforce and our residents who have struggled through that year and who have been laid off and who have been denied going to work even when they wanted to, I can in good conscience accept that, and with our salary base reflective of our median income, which is just north of $60,000, I don't know that our department heads as well as our elected officials should receive that 3% for the next 3 years. So that's just my position, and that's the motion to exclude that.
Okay. I did want to point out one other thing on the constitutional officers. When there's a state code that doesn't allow us to cut their salary from what it is. It allows us to stop the increases, but because of the situation of they're running for office with a base salary, they know it's a known base salary. When we asked department heads to take a 6% pay cut, I think it was about 1% medical, back in 2000, I keep saying 13, but it was earlier than that. It was probably 2011. 5 of the 6 constitutional officers voluntarily, because they didn't have to. And I see the district attorney in the back, she was one of them, but it was our treasurer tax collector, the former treasurer tax collector, that refused to take a pay cut. So again, that's why I feel like the door swings both ways when you're working in collaboration.
Completely understand, and I'm not in any way asking for any cuts today. I was just asking for that 3% not to be included for department heads and elected officials.
Okay. Manny, did you?
All right. Thank you, Chair Chiesa. I appreciate my colleague bringing up this issue and acknowledging the fact that the department heads, because as responsibilities during the pandemic went up, our department heads went above and beyond. So for any reason, I cannot see them also getting the raises that other groups that they work with or that work with them are getting, and then not it carrying over to our department heads. And then I appreciate CEO Hayes bringing up the fact that there is a mechanism that if you feel uncomfortable with obtaining this raise, you can reach out to the auditor controller and ask that that not be implemented. I feel that's a choice that every board member should have, every other elected in the county should have. For myself, I'd be making the personal choice of reaching out to the auditor controller and requesting that I do not receive that 3%. But I do not feel comfortable making that choice for my colleagues and other elected officials. And for the department heads, I feel because of their added responsibilities, they deserve this. And so that's how I'll be voting. I don't know if this is going to be a motion that's going to be voted on as brought up by Supervisor Condit, or it's going to be a separate motion, but that's how I'd be voting on this motion.
Just to weigh in a little bit, I appreciate, Chance, your opinion on this and your feelings, and like I said, I very much appreciate that. Just a couple things with regard to our department heads. In this market today, and I can tell you from my own accounting firm, I mean, we just cannot find people. We cannot find people competent people to work, and to not pay them enough is going to just make that even harder. And we can look at the salaries and compared to the median income across the county, but we don't want to make it harder for us. So we've got to be competitive in order to get good people to make our department heads are there, qualified individuals to be able to make decisions to run this county. A $1.7 billion budget. We need qualified people in these positions, and it is so hard to find people right now. So from the department head standpoint, I don't hesitate at all with regard to our salaries and our increases. We make sure we have good people in those positions, and we need to pay them well in order to retain them and keep them around. As far as the Board of Supervisors, I think for a lot of us, this job costs us money at this point. I know it costs me money to be here, regardless of the salary I'm being paid. I am losing dollars in my accounting firm as I sit here every day, and it's not being made up with what I'm paid here. None of us do this for the money. It's not for the dollars that we get. And so from that standpoint, we have a mechanism in place to make sure we're always at least 20% below the average. I think that's very fair the way to do this. And ultimately, and I remember I used to always hear this from our former clerk of the Board of Supervisors, would say that we need to make sure that people who don't have other jobs can still do this job and, on a salary that they can afford to live on. So a lot of us are blessed with other options, other jobs, other professions that we're able to supplement and it really is our main source of income, and this is just something extra that we do. But we sure don't want people not to be able to do this job who are maybe qualified but can't do it because they can't afford the salary that's paid, or otherwise we're going to end up with people in here that have no qualifications at all. If we're not able to pay them enough to make a living off doing this job. So anyway, that's just my stand. I very much
appreciate that. I
yeah.
do think my point is being lost. This has nothing to do with their current salary. Our department head's current salary is quite handsome as compared to just a regular resident in our county. This is about the 3% for the next 3 years. It has nothing to do with cutting their current salary.
Got it. Supervisor Condit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's a great conversation. I think I would be able to support that motion if the department heads were not included in that discussion or in that motion. I know during the time of COVID, they were taxed. They're hard to fill positions. And most of our directors, department heads, they're not working your typical 40-hour work week. They're working, I can't even imagine some of the hours that they're working, 20 to 40 hours above that. So, you know, I would consider supporting that motion if the directors, department heads were not part of that. And even as an elected official, I have that right to go to the auditor controller and opt out of that pay increase.
Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it back. Any comments from the public? Bring it back to the board. There is a motion to not okay the COLA increases for the next 3 years for department heads, constitutional officers, and board. Yeah.
I do need to seek just clarification of the motion. We have two different components occurring here. One is the 3% salary increase. We are also applying a COVID recovery one-time payment for all full-time unrepresented employees, which includes all categories of employees unrepresented, which would include the Board of Supervisors as well. So I just want to clarify if the motion is specific to the 3% or if it also includes the one-time payment for full-time unrepresented.
It'd be both.
Employees. Thank you very much.
Both. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second on that? Seeing no second, dies for lack of a second. Another motion? Wants to try? Motion to approve B11. First time ever.
And I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We're going to do a roll call vote for this, if that's okay with you. Madam Clerk?
District 1 Supervisor Butt Condit.
Aye.
District 2 Supervisor Chairman Chiesa.
Aye.
District 3 Supervisor Supervisor Withrow.
Aye.
District 4 Supervisor Manning Grewell.
Aye.
And District 5 Supervisor Chance Condit.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. This is always good discussion. All right, so now we're going to move on to, that's the end of the consent calendar.
It's okay.
We're moving on to item 6, public hearing. It's a public hearing to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval of a rezone and Williams Snack cancellation application 2019-0061 Bronco Wine Company. And Kristen and Angela will be presenting today.
Good morning. I'm Angela Freitas, Director of Planning Community Development, and leading us in this presentation will be Kristen Dowd.
Hey, good morning. Kristen Dowd, here to present on rezone and Williams Snack cancellation PLN 2019-0061 Bronco Winery Group. This project includes a rezone and Williams Snack cancellation. The request would allow the development of wine storage tanks and shallow checks and a new driveway on 2 parcels that are 38.58 acres in size, located northeast of the existing Bronco facility. And a Williams Snack cancellation is required to accommodate this proposed facility expansion. The project also includes a revised CEQA analysis for the uses included in 2016 rezone, which was approved by the Board of Supervisors in May of 2017. And the rezone will combine all of the Bronco uses into one zoning district. The site is located at 6342 Bystrom Road, 800 1000 and 1130 East Keys Road, east of Crow's Landing Road, west of State Highway 99, and south of the city of Ceres. The site has a general plan designation of agriculture and a zoning designation of Plan Development 336 and A240 General Agriculture. There are scattered single-family dwellings, orchards, row crops, vineyards, and several dairies surrounding the site in all directions. And there is a large chicken farm just south of the site, the Gimperley Ranch, and the city of Ceres is located approximately 2 miles north of the project site. The project is comprised of 3 parcels. One is 119.4 acres, and the 2 eastern parcels are 18.84 acres and 19.74 acres in size. The western 119-acre parcel includes the existing Bronco Wine Company facility. And the existing facility is currently improved with shipping warehouses, barrel rooms, a railroad spur, drainage basin, offices and administration buildings, storage and maintenance buildings, truck docks, truck parking, visitor employee parking, wine storage tanks and shallow checks, and several warehouses. A single-family dwelling exists on the northwestern portion of the 119-acre parcel, which will be demolished to accommodate the 2016 expansion. And the 2 eastern parcels are improved with 2 single-family dwellings and agricultural accessory structures and almond orchards. The Union Pacific Railroad abuts the western property line of the project site, and access to the existing facility is taken from Bystrom Road. So as I said, the project includes 3 parcels, approximately a total of 158 acres in size, and if approved, the zoning will be amended from PD 336 and A2 to a new plan development covering the entire project site area. The existing facility located on a 119-acre site is zoned PD 336. On May 23, 2017, a rezone was approved by the Board of Supervisors, allowing for expansion of the facility to the north and allowing for the storage and shipping of wine to be developed in phases. Phase 1 of this rezone, all located on the northern expansion area, included construction of a 120,000 square foot warehouse, shown in red, to be utilized for storage of bottled wine stock, construction of 2 railroad spurs to be utilized for deliveries, and truck parking. And all of this Phase 1 development, with the exception of one of the railroad spurs, has been completed. Phase 2 development of the 2016 rezone included 6 additional warehouses with truck docks, 2 offices, 2 employee centers, a pavilion, an administration building, and a filter storage building, all indicated in red here. And these Phase 2 developments expansion were approved by the Board of Supervisors but have yet to be developed. The project also proposes further expansion of the winemaking portion of the facility on 2 parcels, 38.5 acres in size, located northeast of the existing facility, and includes the construction of up to 190 storage tanks and 7 shallow checks, and development of a new driveway located along the eastern boundary of the proposed expansion to serve the trucks accessing the site. And a Williamson Act cancellation is included in this project request to allow the expansion area to be rezoned from agriculture to planned development. The project site currently includes 6-foot high security chain link fencing and secured entry gates. Cypress trees are planted along the eastern and western property borders and will be extended along the northern road frontage of East Keys Road and around the project boundaries adjacent to the ranchette that is located adjacent to the eastern expansion area. The project does not propose any changes to employees, buildings, or hours of operation from what was approved in the 2016 rezone, other than the additional wine tanks and shallow checks. In terms of correspondence, prior to the Planning Commission hearing, planning staff received a phone call from a resident who lives adjacent to the project site. The resident was emailed a copy of the initial study prepared for the project and was added onto the interested parties list to ensure that they were fully aware of all project activity. And 2 items of correspondence were received regarding the proposed project, including an email received from Gunnar Goffrey and a letter received from Trebesh and Frampton, representing the Gimperley Brothers and Golden Essence Eggs, LLC. Both written items of correspondence discussed concerns with the abandonment of Bystrom Road and how the Gimperly property, which is a chicken ranch operated by Golden Essence Eggs LLC located south of the project site, would maintain access after abandonment of the road occurred. And here you can see the neighbor who called about the project in between the two proposed expansion parcels, identified there as assessor parcel number 041046003, and the Gimperly facility located south of the Bronco site on the east side of Bystrom Road, identified there with assessor parcel number 041048008. So as previously said, the facility's main access is currently Bystrom Road. Construction of a new driveway along the eastern boundary of the project site at the intersection of Keys and Morgan Road has been incorporated into this project to serve as the new main entrance. And this was required as a mitigation measure to improve safety related to truck traffic coming into and out of the site. And here you can see that proposed new driveway in pink on the eastern portion, coming off East Keys Road. Access to the Bronco facility from Bystrom Road after this is constructed will be limited to customers and employees only. The Bronco facility also proposes to relocate the second railroad spur, which they were approved for, within the Bystrom Road right-of-way if the abandonment of Bystrom Road is approved by the Board of Supervisors. An abandonment of Bystrom Road requires board approval through a separate board action. The second railroad spur was originally included in Phase 1 of the 2016 rezone, but was proposed to be relocated east of Bystrom Road to allow for a proper fire turnaround. The Gimperly facility expressed concerns with the abandonment of Bystrom Road, as this is currently their main facility access road, and whether or not to allow for the abandonment of Bystrom Road, as I just previously stated, will be considered by the Board of Supervisors through a separate action. The railroad spur proposed by Bronco to be located with the abandoned right-of-way could only be developed if the Board of Supervisors approved the abandonment through that separate action. And just to note, the Public Works is currently working with the Gimperlys to find an appropriate alternative access for the site. A response was also received from the Air District during the 30-day initial study review period of the 2016 rezone, indicating that further review of the project's Phase 2 impacts to air quality should be conducted. The 2016 rezone Phase 2 activities were evaluated in the initial study prepared for this project. And an air quality analysis report was prepared, which did not identify any significant air impacts associated with the Phase 2 development. And the Air District reviewed the initial study and air quality analysis report and responded that they had no further comments. Pike Road, which you can see here, is located east of the Bronco facility and is limited to the number of truck trips by Development Standard number 28. Development Standard number 28 limits access to Pike Road by in-season and out-of-season truck trips. Staff provided a memo to the Planning Commission requesting that Development Standard number 19 be amended to remove the reference to Pike Road, which conflicted with Development Standard number 28. And this amendment was proposed to prevent the conflict and to provide clarity on Bronco Wine Company's ability to utilize Pike Road. The project was evaluated for consistency with the land use element's agricultural land use designation, which is consistent with the planned development zoning designation when it's used for agriculturally related uses or for uses which are of a demonstrably unique character, which due to specific agricultural needs or to their transportation needs can only be satisfied in the agricultural designation. The project proposes an agricultural buffer alternative made up of buffer trees and fencing and a reduced setback. In addition to finding that the planned development zoning designation is consistent with the agricultural land use element designation, the Planning Commission and Board must consider the Williamson Act cancellation findings, which includes finding that the cancellation is in the public's interest, that a notice of non-renewal has been filed, that the cancellation is not likely to result in the removal of adjacent lands from agricultural uses, and that it's for an alternative use which is consistent with the general plan. Staff's review of the project found it to be consistent with the general plan, zoning, and Williamson Act cancellation findings. Pursuant to CEQA, an initial study, which included traffic and air quality studies and mitigation to reduce transportation impacts to a less than significant level, was circulated to interested parties and responsible agencies for review and comment. and a mitigated negative declaration has been prepared for approval for the project, indicating that the project will have a less than significant effect on the environment with mitigation included. And development standards reflecting referral responses have also been placed on the project. The Planning Commission considered this item at a public hearing on May 20th, 2021. During the public hearing, Michael Deeney, an attorney for the Gimperly Brothers and Golden Essence Eggs, and Pat Titus spoke in opposition to the project. Michael Deeney stated that they had no objection to the project, but that they did have an objection to the abandonment of Bystrom Road without there being an alternative identified. Pat Titus spoke in opposition to the project, stating she had concerns with water quality, traffic, and lighting. Speaking in favor of the project during the public hearing was Dan Leonard, representing Bronco Wine Company. Mr. Leonard stated that the entire issue with the project has been that Bystrom Road was identified by Public Works as being unsafe, which needs to be addressed. After the close of the public hearing, the Planning Commission discussed that they would support the project if a condition was added, that the winery comes up with an alternative access at no cost to the Gimperly Ranch. They then voted to recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the project, including staff's recommended amendment to Development Standard Number 19, and including an amendment to Development Standard Number 26, which requires that the abandonment of Bystrom Road be contingent on the applicant obtaining all necessary county approvals, and that all affected parcels having necessary alternative access prior to any abandonment, and that the abandonment be at no cost to other affected parcels. 2 items of correspondence were submitted to the Board of Supervisors after publishing of the board report. One was from Terbesh and Frampton, representatives for the Gimperly Brothers, who reiterated concerns with the abandonment of Bystrom Road and stated support for the Planning Commission's amendment to Development Standard Number 26. Another letter was received from Newman Romano, representing Bronco, who stated support of the Development Standard Number 26 as was originally proposed by staff, and requested an amendment to their development schedule, which would extend the beginning and end dates of their Phase 2 uses, approved with a 2016 rezone, from beginning in 1 year to beginning within 5 years, and for the wine tank and shallow check expansion to begin within 7 years, and for all development to be completed within 10 years. So to conclude, after considering the project during a public hearing, the Planning Commission recommended that the Board of Supervisors approve the project as proposed in the May 20th Planning Commission staff report, including the amendments to Development Standards Number 19 and 26 as reflected in the board report, and including all of the findings on Exhibit A, which includes findings regarding environmental review, the Williams Act cancellation, rezone, agricultural buffer alternative, road improvements and dedications, and project approval. And that concludes my presentation. Staff's available for any questions.
Are there any questions of staff? No? Either way? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out. I typically let the applicant, if they have anything to say, or staff missed anything.
Chairman Case and members of the board, Dave Romano on behalf of Bronco Winery. It's a great pleasure to be before you this morning. I'm joined by Dan Leonard from Bronco Winery, Jim Freitas from Associated Engineering. This is a great project. We appreciate all of staff and the Planning Commission's hard work. I think the value of the project to our community is witnessed by the fact that it does come before you with a unanimous recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission. And the issue before you that we're going to talk about are a couple of minor modifications. Even our neighbors don't dispute the project. And so the question really isn't the project, but just a couple of very specific issues that we're going to ask the board to consider on behalf of Bronco. I did give the board a letter. I also handed out the attachment A to that letter in green, just so it would be easy and be able to kind of frame my comments this morning. The issue really has to do with Bystrom Road and the ultimate abandonment of Bystrom Road. Bystrom Road is not being proposed to be abandoned as part of this project. What that looks like when ultimately it comes before the board and is abandoned is unclear. What parties use it, what parties have responsibility for it, how it will be abandoned. But that seemed to be a little bit lost on the Planning Commission, and they chose to weigh in on a condition regarding abandonment that wouldn't even go to the Planning Commission initially. So the first request that we have on behalf of Bronco is that the condition return to its initial wording. What the Planning Commission did was try to assign rights and responsibilities to an abandonment that wasn't before them and is not yet before the board. So we think that the condition that was initially proposed by staff, Development Standard number 26, is fair and appropriate and right as originally drafted. That is request number 1 from Bronco, and ultimately, before Bystrom Road is abandoned, it will come before the Board of Supervisors. It will be chewed through by your staff, by the parties who use Bystrom Road, and then at that time, it will be ripe for a decision from the board regarding abandonment. Don't abandon it. What are the terms of that abandonment? So we think that that's fair, appropriate, and right. And the second thing is to just modify the development schedule and give us a little more time. You know, Mr. White's comments were correct in that labor is hard to find. And in the construction industry right now, labor is hard to find as well. Materials are hard to get. They're becoming more and more costly. And as businessmen look to develop these projects, they want to make sure that they make their decisions regarding when to pull the trigger at the most efficient time for them. And so this application comes before you with a 2019 date. Here we are, 2021. That lets you know how slow things can go. A one-year schedule to start is really quick and takes some flexibility away from Bronco. So Bronco would like to have those modified. I think that they're minor requests. They're easy requests. Nobody's position is compromised. It is not detrimental to any of the parties. For this decision with respect to Bystrom Road to be deferred until it comes before the board. It will come before the board someday, and you will get to chew through it and decide on it. But we're appreciative of all the effort to get us to this point. We look forward to moving forward with this project. I will do my best to answer questions if needed between Mr. Freitas and Mr. Leonard. We think we could answer any questions of the board. If an issue comes up that's new or different or novel in testimony that needs our result, would like an opportunity to get back up and address that. But those are our comments. We would ask for approval with those 2 modifications. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions, Dave? Nope. Okay, I have 1 speaker card. Mr. Mike, oh, Dan. Sorry.
Good morning again. Thank you, staff, for making the presentation. Very thorough. Just want to make one other point, and that is back in the 2016 approval and this application, one of the biggest issues is the safety of the intersection of Bystrom Road, Keys Road, and the railroad tracks. And we're moving, Bronco Winery is moving the ingress-egress over to Morgan Road for the specific purpose of mitigating and eliminating any safety issues at that intersection. So I just want to make sure that that point is in the record. Thank you.
Thank you. So here again will be my second time I'm opening the public hearing as Mike is laughing at me. And so we'll say that was pre-public hearing.
I'd like to talk to you all about the mask mandate, and no, I'm just kidding. My name is Mike Dean. I'm from Chippish and Frampton. I represent the Kimberly interests, Kimberly Brothers and Golden Essence Eggs. And, you know, of all the aspects of this project that have an opportunity to adversely affect the surrounding landowners, the abandonment of Bystrom is the one thing that really comes to mind. And planning commissioners recognize this. In fact, this matter wouldn't be before you yet until they were adequately satisfied how the Bystrom issue was going to be resolved. Without Bystrom Road, the Kimberly Brothers and their interests have no access whatsoever for heavy trucks that travel down to their ranch, about 120 trips a week. And without that road, there is no suitable emergency vehicle access that would permit them to address conditions such as the fire that happened just a couple of years ago, for which Bronco Winery thankfully helped to provide the water to put out that fire. I'd like to let you know that we are solution-minded. We all have business interests. We want them to be successful. After the Planning Commission meeting, I reached out to Mr. Leonard to open discussions to try to formulate a plan for how we can adequately address the competing business interests to ensure that all suitable business interests were protected. And to my way of thinking, addressing this aspect of the project without resolving the crux issue here about what's happening with Bystrom Road puts the cart before the horse. And again, that's something the Planning Commission recognized and would not have passed without the amendment to Development Standard number 26. And with that, I will submit.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Deeney?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Steve? No. Mr. Gimperly, to you, right? All right. Anyone else from the public? Public Works Director? Nothing? Yeah.
I'd love to. Dave Lehman, Stanislaus County Public Works Director. In the interests of this conversation, we installed some cameras, or actually a camera at Bystrom and Keys Road. And we found exactly what we thought we would find, which is trucks cannot make legal turns from Bystrom to Keys Road, nor can they make legal turns from Keys Road onto Bystrom. The geometry is not very good. And so we have the pictures at Public Works, and so really what we've asked the parties that are interested in access on Bystrom is we've got to find another way to get trucks to Gimperly. You know, and so there's some options on the table, whether it's Public Works invest some of our Measure L money on Barnhart, a little bit of it, because every road in the county gets done 3 times in 25 years with Measure L, so we're willing to pitch in, and maybe we improve Barnhart and make that truck eligible, because right now it's got a 14-ton weight limit, or maybe the Gimperlys build a bridge over Taylor. I know that's not their first choice, but basically they've got a landlocked parcel. The UP, the county surveyor, did do the research, and with the deed, when the Tidewater Southern bought the right-of-way off the landowners 100 years ago, the landowners didn't get a reservation that we can find, a deeded access across the railroad for that parcel. So the county surveyor dug and looked at old deeds, and that was one of our questions. So one of the things that we've heard from the Gimperlys is they have a 5-year renewable lease with the railroad, and they're kind of at the railroad's mercy to get from Bystrom to their property. That's not negotiated deeded access in perpetuity. So it's interesting on access down Bystrom. And so really the biggest public works issue is the legal turns from Bystrom to Keys and from Keys to Bystrom, because you have to cross into the opposite lane of traffic to get your truck around that railroad equipment. And that was one of the issues with Bronco, is they didn't want to improve the at-grade railroad crossing there, because we think it's about $1.5 million project when you start touching railroad equipment. You get new switches, new gates, new panels. It's very expensive. And the railroad tells you how much it's going to cost. You don't get to negotiate with the railroad. They just send you a bill, and that's how much it costs, and it's big money. So we would recommend that they work with Public Works on finding another way to their parcel other than Bystrom off of Keys. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. So if there's no one else from the public, now I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. So I appreciate Mr. Deeney's offer of solutions, and nothing works better than a little pressure on everyone. I say this all the time. We have 2 important businesses to Stanislaus County that are neighbors with each other. I don't believe it's the intent of this board, if an abandonment comes to not allow access, we have to work together. I think that's it, and now's the time to do that. I definitely see a segregation between the abandonment. I don't think this board should weigh in on the abandonment at this point. But again, I want everyone to understand that if we landlock a business and we don't allow them to prosper, then we're not doing our jobs either. So coming up with solutions, I appreciate those comments. I know we've talked with the Gimperlys. Matt Machado and I had met with Rich, your brother, Steve. I know I said Steve. I don't know why I said that a few seconds ago, but and Mike, to try and work through this issue many years ago, actually. So I look forward to future discussions. As far as the site, the Bronco Winery site, this is something that satisfies a safety concern. We've had lots of safety concerns. We've known even before you put up a camera that there's trucks making illegal or unsafe turns, I don't know, illegal, but crossing over the center line, because it's a tough situation when you're heading back towards the freeway to make a right-hand turn off of Bystrom. And so through the satisfaction of rerouting a road at great expense, obviously, to Bronco Winery, to satisfy what the county sees as a need is, laudable also. As far as the other development agreement, I'm okay with changing the years to start. That I tell all applicants when you come in, ask for what you think you need, because nothing's worse than when we've had to extend development agreements and we go through this process again where it gives folks an opportunity to try and slow a project down. So I think that's good, and as long as you're comfortable, I'm going to hold you to it now from here on forward. And I'm also okay, I think we need to revert back to staff's recommendation, and then I'm going to tell Dave and Mike and the Bronco Winery, Dan, I want everyone to sit down and figure out a plan before this becomes, because that's the sticky wicket and all of this on a go-forward basis for us, is the abandonment of the road. The project, they've been good neighbors. I think, we've got an expansion, a dairy business that turned into a much larger poultry business. The Bronco Winery's been there since, I believe, the 70s, 74-ish. Great employers, both of them are great employers. So I don't want this to create a problem down the line, but know that you have, again, I'm willing to sit at the table with you guys and work something out. But I don't see that applicable today, and so I'm going to revert myself. I'm going to support going back to the original statement of the abandonment of Bystrom Road is contingent upon obtaining all necessary county approvals, and I think that, and we're not even sure if that goes. We had a discussion if that goes back to the Planning Commission. I think everyone's going to get another bite at the apple, whether it requires a CEQA document or anything, but we'll do that. And with that, any other comments? Derek?
I'll just weigh in. I agree with you 100% on all of that. I think the development schedule, it's fine to change that, and I just think we're going to work this thing out with Kimberly one way or another. Sounds like everybody's on board to get there, and that's a separate issue that'll come before the board. I'm good.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, Supervisor Condit, you okay?
Yes.
All right. Then if there's no other comments, I'm going to bring it back to the board for action, and we have to be specific in our.
Yeah, I think I heard comments, and if you would allow me to propose a motion.
Oh. Okay. The attorney.
It's always bad when the attorney has to talk.
Well, this time is pretty good. So an appropriate motion would be to approve staff recommendations and amend development standard number 26 to read as follows. The abandonment of Bystrom Road is contingent upon obtaining all necessary county approvals. And number 2, modifying the development schedule as proposed in the applicant's letter in the attachment A. So I was struggling with that a bit.
Would that be to approve staff's recommendation, or at this time to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation with those changes?
With those changes.
Planning Commission
Are you
or
good?
Staff's recommendation.
I think it's staff's recommendation in the, I'm sorry, we should have set this up prior, but I think it's staff's recommendation in the staff report.
Yes, I just wanted to be clear. So if we go back to the original Planning Commission staff recommendation, it would be to support staff's recommendation with the amendment to Development Standard number 19.
Okay.
It was a memo.
That was captured in a
It's
memo that went to
staff's
Planning
memo
Commission.
that went to Planning Commission on May
Okay.
20th.
With the
development schedule.
With the development schedule as proposed by the applicant.
Yeah, in your correspondence.
All right, so let me restate that. Approve the Planning Commission's recommendations and modify the development schedule as proposed by the applicant. Did I get that right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, except for them, yeah.
Angela, you propose it.
So approve the project based on staff's recommendations with the amendment to Development Standard number 19 as had been proposed in the Planning Commission memo, and with the change to the development schedule as proposed by Bronco.
Concur.
Okay, so we have that. Do we have a motion and a second?
So that
Motion.
Okay, we have a
As stated.
motion as stated.
Second as stated.
Motion as stated, second as stated. Got that? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now the hard work comes. Dave? get after it now. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move on to item 9, Board of Supervisor reports. Is there
Mr.
any
Chairman,
Board of Supervisor
we have
reports?
correspondence.
Correspondence? Correspondence? You see me squinting up here, right? Squinting.
This board has received the 2020-2021 Stanislaus County Civil Grand Jury Report number 21-14GJ regarding the annual financial audit report for fiscal year ending June 30, 2020.
Refer to the Auditor, Controller, and Chief Executive Office.
This board has received the claims as noted on the agenda.
Acknowledge receipt of claims and refer to the Chief Executive Office. Are there any Board of Supervisor reports? Right, left. Okay. Legislative Fiscal Management Report.
Okay, so I'll be quick. So we're watching the tail end of the budget process, and we know that several budget trailer bills went into print over this weekend, so we're looking at those for any impacts, and we know that there are still more coming. This is a different year in terms of budget process at the state of California, so it requires us to stay on our toes here with a lot of detail headed our way, and still not done. We had a couple of important meetings this last week I just want to report out on. Chairman Chiesa, as well as Supervisor Graywall, members of CEO staff, met with our U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, Central Valley District Director. Several priority federal legislative issues, policy areas that we discussed in this meeting, including water infrastructure projects, public transit, and our Crows Landing Industrial Business Park. Later in the week, Chairman Chiesa joined CEO staff also in a meeting with Governor Newsom, Central Valley Deputy Regional Director of External Affairs, and several of the same issues were discussed along with other state issues like cannabis, regional needs on mental health facilities, water, rail, other infrastructure projects. So we appreciate all of our members of our board continuing to work with us in those state and federal electives to see if we can do good things for Stanislaus County.
Thank you very much. I do want to acknowledge Deputy John Gingrich keeping us safe today. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We do have a closed session.
Yes, we have closed session this morning. Conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency negotiators and the labor organizations are as stated in the agenda. We have a second item in closed session. That's conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. That is pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. There's one case there. It's the County of Stanislaus and City of Modesto versus Covanta Stanislaus, Inc. That's Stanislaus County Superior Court case number CV 20-004932. Appropriate for public comment.
Anyone for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just real quick, we went through that pretty quick. Mobile office hours tomorrow at 201 North 3rd Street, House Beef, 1 to 3.
Oh.
I'll be there for lunch.
We'll be there at 1 o'clock. All right. All right. This meeting is adjourned to closed session.